I'm Joanna Garzilli. This is Tarot News, giving you a multi-dimensional view. Saudi Arabia, the drone attack, the oil. The first question that came up in my mind, because I was terrified when I saw that, was, are we heading towards World War III? And this is why I'm doing this episode, because with everything that's going in the news, it gets pretty frightening. And so I took several days before I really had to sit with what was going on, do my own research. I did pick tarot cards for it, and I needed to be with the card that came up, so that here I wanted to be focused on a solution. So make sure you stay to the end, because I'm going to be talking about the solutions, and I really want to hear from you on this, right? This isn't about me just being a talking head and talking at you about the facts. I'm going to share some insights, what has come up from the card, what it means, and then how can you be proactive with this, right? Because when things start to escalate, right? Everyone's talking about the escalation. We have seen warships that, oil tankers that have been seized. For example, the Imperio that was seized by Iran. And I know that at the time when I last looked, 7 of the 23 crew members have been released. And then the British were holding an Iranian tanker, the Grace, that was being held in Gibraltar because it was breaking the sanctions there. And we're taking the oil to Syria instead. So there's this whole dynamic going on. So the first thing I went is, well, are we going to a full-blown World War III where it's like war games? And no, I do not believe that is going to happen. And obviously this is just my opinion, my perspective. More will be revealed as time plays out and the present becomes history. So I do not believe there will be a full-blown war. As I started to look more closely, and I did do an earlier episode back in July about the ship War Drums Iran, and I feel that we are in a Cold War right now. We do, because the Gulf and the passageway that we have where for trade and access point, that it is an issue. And this whole issue, I'm looking at, well, what was the problem here? We have a massive oil addiction, because I didn't understand, well, why are these ships being held? The one that was being held in Gibraltar, the British were holding the Iranian tanker, and it had $144 million worth of oil on it. So this is the big issue. And then I learned that there are 8 prior presidents who have said, we're going to get off of oil. I promise you, we're going to be done with this. And every single president that said that has not delivered on that promise. From Democrat to Republican, it's not just a left or a right thing. And this goes all the way back to Nixon. So we started to think more deeply about, well, what does this mean? How do we create peace in the Middle East? We need a different form of energy. And it's not like we don't know this, but something has to happen. Now, before I talk a little bit more about that and some of the solutions, and I want to hear, what do you feel some of these solutions are here at an economic level? So, Saudi Arabia, Iran. And I was like, well, why? What is all of this? And then because I didn't understand the whole, I'll be honest, I was ignorant. I didn't understand the whole history of the Middle East. And I saw, it goes all the way back to the Sunnis, who are primarily in Saudi Arabia, and the Shiites, who are in Iran and in Iraq. And so there's this major breaking off within Islam, which goes all the way back to the great prophet Muhammad. And Islam is meant to be a religion that unites all, and yet there are all these factions. And then it goes beyond Islam. I mean, it goes to Judaism, and it goes to different aspects of Christianity. And so I think religion And principles of all religions are good, but what the fault is at a human level. So from a spiritual context, I believe that we are moving into what I would refer to as the age of humanity. And so the question on a spiritual level is, how can you show up in a more humane way? How can you stop turning a blind eye? Because it's easy when I'm not in Yemen. I don't have a child who's starving. Right? It doesn't affect me. But for them, they're affected. And so I think that one has to really just come back to, you know, there's so much with this that needs to be resolved. So let's talk a moment about solutions, right? Because I had picked the card for Saudi Arabia was this 10 of Swords. That man lying face down on the ground is representative of Saudi Arabia. And I feel that this goes to that there is just toxicity within the intelligence community that, again, you don't have to be psychic to know that. There's stuff all over the place. We see it in all the movies and the spy books and everything that's out there. But if we didn't have to fight over certain resources, I think, or I would hope, unless we're just all crazy humans, that we would be able to move beyond having to stab each other in the back. Solutions. Free markets. What if we came up with alternatives to oil? Now, I know they're already out there. We have electric vehicles that are there, but then there's another whole problem that comes with that, is with needing to store all the batteries. Other solutions beyond that? An excellent solution that my husband, Nick Garzilli, who is an expert within this space and with green technologies, energy efficient, good for the environment, that are a benefit for all the concerns that we have with climate change right now. He's been talking about this heavily since 2011, but the governments don't listen. Not yet, anyway. We want to make sure we don't get to a disaster point where we're screwed and we're doing something too late. So the Solar Mobility Act, check out the links below in this video, read through the act, look at how you can be proactive in your community if it resonates with you. Super energy efficient forms of transport that can go across different industries. And this would be a great solution. Other things, that there's another company out there called AML, and they are making permanent magnets. And those magnets mean that then we don't have to go and mine in China. So there are a lot of different, again, this is just one company I'm mentioning. Go and look at what companies are out there, what scientists and engineers are innovating. And if this is something that interests you, how can you get involved in some way? Whether it's just speaking out at your city council meeting, it's looking at, well, why are the rights of way, why are we stuck in a time period from 150 years ago? So these are the solutions that I personally think are good solutions to get off of our oil addiction. Then we don't have to have a crazy war build up in the Middle East, because essentially Saudi Arabia and Iran, it goes all the way back to what happened in the Cold War between USA and Russia. And I just feel like all the governments are like children who are throwing their toys out of their stroller, out of their pram, and everyone just needs to get on the same page and know, look, there is enough for everyone. We have enough resources and we can make this work. And it's not going to happen overnight, but we really need to step towards making those choices. So my hope is that we can start to set this in motion. More will be revealed. I think you're going to see a lot of in the press of different things, and yes, different attacks and more bloodshed that is happening, that if you're not in the Middle East, it's not going to directly impact you. You might pay a bit more for gas, for petrol at a certain point, but a bigger picture, it's not going to really impact you. But my gosh, for the people who are in the Middle East and who are stuck in the middle of this, a lot of them, they don't deserve it. No one deserves this. And I look forward to hearing your comments, your thoughts, your suggestions about how can we be proactive here? How can we get off of our oil addiction? Because then we can avoid turning this into a major war. I am Joanna Garzilli. This is Tarot News. Tune in next time.